You're listening to Speaking of Health and Wellness, the podcast, where we dive into holistic nutrition, biomedical treatments, functional medicine, low toxicant living, and developmental strategies with a special focus on children with complex picky eating, developmental delays, and neurodevelopmental disorders. I'm your host, Shandy Lasky, integrative speech-language pathologist, pediatric feeding specialist, functional nutritional therapy practitioner, and Epidemic Answers certified health coach. Together, we are changing the conversation around how we view, discuss, prevent, and treat these childhood epidemics. I am so honored to have your time and attention today. Thank you for joining me and for all of your support. Please note that this podcast is for educational purposes only and should never be misconstrued as medical advice or a replacement for individualized care from your trusted providers. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Speaking of Health and Wellness, the podcast. You're listening to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Picky Eating series, Reframing the Goal of Mealtimes. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you know, you may or may not already know, today is the first day of the first launch of my first online course, Naturally Navigating Picky Eating. I have condensed my parent coaching philosophies and top strategies that I've used with clients into a framework to help guide you and help you navigate your child's complex picky eating from the comfort of your home. It is a self-paced course for parents and caregivers of kids with complex picky eating with and without developmental conditions and chronic health conditions. Designed specifically to help you identify the underlying issues related to your child's picky eating and empower you with the strategies and resources to tailor an approach specific to their needs so that you can help them eat a nutritionally balanced diet and become a more adventurous eater. And so you can bring more joy and ease to your meal times. If it sounds like a good fit, check it out and consider joining us this week. If you're listening in real time, that is the doors are open today, Monday, May 13th through Saturday, May 18th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. After 8 p.m. Central Time on Saturday, May 18th, the launch closes and you can still enroll in Naturally Navigating Picky Eating. However, you will not get the launch bonus. And the launch bonus is 3 live group Q&A calls with me. So you can sign up for the course. You can do it totally DIY if you want. But if you sign up this week, if you're listening in real time, if you sign up this week, you will get access to 3 live bonus calls with me, group Q&As, and you'll be able to get your questions answered as you move through the course. So if it sounds like a great fit, I would love to see you inside. Let's dive into today's episode. All about reframing the goal of mealtimes. So what do I mean by that? The goal usually is, how do I get my kid to eat? How do I get my kid to eat this? And when your kid is struggling with complex picky eating, there is so much pressure involved on you, on your child, on your family, on the mealtime in general. And the number one question, like I said, is how can I get my child to eat, insert whatever food here? But what if we reframe that goal? And what if by reframing that goal, we can move some of that intangible weight of all of that pressure around mealtimes? You see, the goal is not obedient consumption. I know it might seem like that, but you're gonna just if your goal continues to be obedient consumption and your child is a complex picky eater, it's like that metaphor, you're fighting fire with fire. Um, you have to reframe the goal so that you can meet your child where they are. And so the goal should never be obedient consumption. The goal should always be a long-standing, healthy relationship with food, meal times, and their body. And you, as the parent and caregiver of this child, the primary feeder, if your kiddo is young, So reframe the goal. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. The goal is a healthy, long-standing relationship with food, meal times, and their body, and you as their parent and or caregiver. That means take the pressure to eat and consume the food totally off. So in a practical sense, what does that look like? This would mean no more force feeding, obviously. No more bribes, no more ultimatums, no more coercion, no more threats, no more putting certain foods on a pedestal or using certain foods as rewards or incentives, either during or outside of the meal times. And this also includes therapists and teachers as well. I know some therapists and teachers are very in the habit of using foods as rewards, and we just have to be really careful about that, especially for kiddos who have complex picky eating. Things like the one bite rule, the clean plate club, or even over celebrating or praising when they do take bites. Like I know that sometimes parents use those strategies in the moment out of the sheer desperation to just get their child to eat. Because as the parent, you know, your natural instinctive goal is to nourish your child. And so it makes sense to me how parents out of that I hate to use the word desperation, but I think that some parents would agree the term that they would say is desperation, like the desperation sometimes to just get their kid to eat. They turn to these tactics. But when we do that, we have to think about what is going on in the child's central nervous system at that time when you do things like that. And by that, I mean, in the most simplistic terms, are we putting this kid into fight or flight, or freeze or fawn? Or are they maintaining a rest and digest state? Is their nervous system in a parasympathetic state or a sympathetic state? We want your child to be in a rest and digest, calm nervous system state. And these tactics, these pressure tactics, alter that. And so when your kid is in a more heightened nervous system state and they're in that fight, flight, anxiety, heightened place around food and meal times, they are not in a place where they are going to, even if they do take a bite for whatever reason, maybe you promised them a new toy or something, if they just took a bite, well, their nervous system will remember the experience. That experience will imprint upon them. And the next time, whether it's that food or maybe it's the next meal, or, every situation could be different, but ask yourself, would your kid willingly eat that food independently and without coercion or pressure tactics the next time that they see it after this experience that just happened? The answer is most likely no. And so you might ask, okay, well, if we're going to reframe the goal of meal times, and the goal is a long-standing healthy relationship with food, meal times in their body, but we don't want to pressure them to eat new foods, how do we actually get them to eat new foods, right? Again, reframe that. We're not going for consumption. So what are we going for? We're going for positive experiences in the moment. Obviously the long-term goal is the healthy standing relationship with food and meal times. But I know you're thinking, give me something more granular. What does this look like? And this is what it looks like. It looks like, instead of using those pressure tactics, you introduce new foods in a way that does not bring your child anxiety. And now this is going to be different for every child. You have to look at where you're starting from with your child. There are some children that will not accept new foods on their plate. There are some children who will accept a new food on their plate, but they're definitely not going to eat it. There are some children that I've worked with that don't even want the new food present around them. I've worked with children who don't even eat at the same meal times as their family because their family's food makes them so distressed, and they don't want to eat their own food, even though their food is distinctly different, you know? So there are a lot of varying degrees of that. And so meet your child where they are by sort of taking a step back from an observational standpoint and saying, okay, what are their favorite foods? Maybe make a list. And then use the concepts of what feeding therapists refer to as food chaining. That's a concept by Sherry Fracker and her colleagues, where you look at the attributes of the current foods that your child already eats, like the taste, the texture, the color, the temperature, whatever, all these different attributes about the foods that they do like. And you say, what foods are very similar to that food? And then you introduce it in a very no pressure way by either giving them exposure outside of the mealtime. So this might look like maybe you pick something out at the grocery store. Maybe your child really loves apples. Okay, let's get like concrete with an example. Maybe your kid really loves apples. And the next time you go to the grocery store, you have your child pick out apples with you. And then you say, you know what I really like that is similar to apples? It's kind of like apples, but it's a little different. I haven't had a pear in a long time. Let's check out the pears. And then you go over to the pears, and you're at the grocery store, right? So you're not at the mealtime, you're not at the dinner table. There's no pressure to eat. You are in a different environment entirely. And you can use that opportunity to teach them how you choose the right pear. Maybe you smell the pear, you have them touch the pear, look at the pear, help them pick out the pear that maybe you buy that day and you bring home. And you're not saying we're going to take this pear home and try it. You're just buying the pear, right? And then later you get out the pear because you want it. And you say, oh, this pear that you picked out is so yummy. Do you want some? And maybe the best time to do that would be like a snack time, right? Where you're already giving them apples and something else. Do you want some? Or maybe you put some out in a little bowl, however, in a similar fashion where you would serve the apples. So like if you do apple slices or apple cubes or whatever, do the pears just like that. So it looks similar, and say, this one is the pear, and put one on their plate. And I'm talking like tiny, underwhelming. There are all these different ways to approach it, but basically taking the pressure to eat totally off. If your child will not accept a new food on their plate, then you may consider starting with the current foods that they eat. Will they allow change to their current preferred foods? And by that, I mean something like if your child always eats French toast for breakfast. How do you cut it up for them? Do you cut it into cubes for them? Do you cut it into sticks? If you cut it differently, would that bother them? And I don't necessarily just mean from a skill standpoint, although that is important from like a oral motor structural functional perspective, because that could tell you things about how their mouth is working. And maybe there's an issue in that area where they prefer the food exactly as it is because of a skill that they're lacking. Like they don't want to move to the next stage of development because they're stuck there. So there are all sorts of things that you can look at there, and that is really what my new online course, Naturally Navigating Picky Eating, does. Is it walks you through the various underlying root causes of complex picky eating and the various nuances and how to really step back, look at your child from this whole body perspective and think about the root causes beneath their complex picky eating and then tailor the approach specific to them. But regardless of the underlying root causes of your child's complex picky eating, this strategy applies. There is not, there is no need. There is, it is not necessary to use pressure tactics when trying to feed your child. We know through experience, through research, and just from my own personal experience with my clients, I can promise you, it may work that meal, but it does not work long term. And sometimes it actually is doing more harm than good in a way where that kiddo is going to become more resistant. And oftentimes my work with kids and families, I am working with parents to sort of not undo, but smooth out or seam the bumps that came up because of those pressure tactics that were used. For example, I've got a wonderful family that I've been working with. And when I started working with them, sometimes the situation was if a child took a bite, they would get a toy. And so, and that wasn't always consistent, right? Because then they'd be buying a lot of new toys, but that was sometimes would happen. And even like months after, they hadn't done that for quite some time. And there was one situation where one night his mom put a new food down and he said, "If I take a bite, can I get a new toy?" And it was just, she said, "It's so funny because we haven't done that in so long." But you can see these residual effects that tactic had, where now he thinks that he can just like stomach this bite in order to get a new toy. But that doesn't really it doesn't really do much for the experience of becoming more comfortable with that food, getting to know that food, because you're sort of like eating the food under distress, right? That goes back to that nervous system state. So essentially, we are reframing the goal to take the pressure off of you, of your child, of your family, of the meal times in general, but also so that we can calm the nervous system down for you and for your child during meal times. Focus on positive experiences and positive exposures. Focus on quality relationship. Focus on a long-standing healthy relationship with food, meal times, and their body. You can learn more by grabbing my free guide, The Do's and Don'ts for Parents of Complex Picky Eaters. I'll list that in the show notes below. And you can also find that on speakingofhealthandwellness.com. Again, this week is the launch of Naturally Navigating Picky Eating, a self-paced online course for parents of children with complex picky eating with and without developmental and complex conditions. If you feel called to join, if that's something that seems like a good fit for you, I would love to see you inside. If it does, if you can, try to join us before the end of, or before 8 o'clock Central Time on Saturday, May 18th, in order to get the launch bonus of 3 group live Q&A calls with me. After the doors close for the launch, you'll still be able to get into the course. You just won't be able to have that live element until the next cohort, possibly, maybe. That's not 100% determined yet. But yeah, I hope that this has been supportive for you. I hope that I have given you some insights and some strategies that you can use with your child. If you're interested in learning more, check out speakingofhealthandwellness.com. Go back to season 1 of this episode. And if you're looking for more guided support, I would love to see you inside of Naturally Navigating Picky Eating. Take care, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks again for listening to Speaking of Health and Wellness, the podcast. I'm so grateful you've taken the time. For any of the references mentioned in the show, head over to speakingofhealthandwellness.com. If this episode resonated with you or inspired you, it would mean so much to me if you took a moment to subscribe, write a review, share it on social media, or with someone in your life who could really benefit from this information. Your support helps this podcast and the overall message and mission of Speaking of Health and Wellness reach more people. If you share on Instagram, tag me so I can personally thank you for listening. If you're on Facebook, come join our free community group of like-minded parents and professionals. The direct link is in the podcast description. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again so much, and take care.